13 test review. We are going to review everything we have learned about decimals and get ready for our test tomorrow. So I'm going to be showing you one of every type of question that you are going to be seeing on the test. That way you will have some great information on how much you need to study for this test before you take it, and you will have at least seen the directions for every type of problem one time before you take the test. So that should ensure some pretty great test results. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here we find our first questions, and what I want you to do is go ahead and do question number 1 on your own. You can pause the screen here and come back. Number 1 says, find the quotient. The quotient, of course, is the answer to a division problem. It says use mental math. That means you don't have to do the actual long division. You're just going to use mental math since we are using powers of 10. So go ahead and pause the video and do question number 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this together. We have 7,835 divided by 10. You know that when you are dividing by a power of 10, you are going to move the decimal place from its current spot over to the left, because your answer, your quotient, is going to be smaller because you're dividing it. All right, so currently our decimal point in a whole number is going to be right here at the end of the whole number, but it says divide it by 10. So you are going to move it over one spot. Remember, you're moving it over the amount of zeros or the amount that the exponent tells you to. So our new answer is going to be 783 and 5/10. All right, let's go on to the next one. 7,835 divided by 100. 100 has 2 zeros. You are going to move this decimal point, which is here, because it's a whole number, once, twice, over to right there. So your answer is going to be 78 and 35 hundredths. And this makes sense because if you have 7,000 something and you divide it up into 100 pieces, your answer of 78 makes sense. It's going to be smaller, right? If you're ending up with bigger numbers, that's not going to make sense. Here we have 7,835 divided by 1,000. So we take this decimal point and we move it over 1, 2, 3 spots. Why? Because there are 3 zeros. Now our answer for this is 7 and 835 thousandths. And that should have been what you got for the answers to number 1. Okay, so let's do number 2. Number 2 says find the value of n. All right, and the problem is 4.7 divided by n equals 0.0047. So you need to figure out what n is. You need to figure out what do you do to 4.7. What can you divide it by so that you end up with 0.0047? Go ahead and pause and see if you can look at this one. It's a little tricky, and figure out what n could be that you could divide it by to get this answer. Go ahead and pause. Okay, so let's figure this out. We said that if we are going to take 4.7 and divide it by something to get 0.0047, well, what did we do to the decimal point in 4.7? It used to be right here, but we ended up moving it 1, 2, 3 spots over to here to get our answer. So we moved it over to the left 3 times. So what would n be? What could we divide 4.7 by so that we move over 3 spots that decimal? Think about that. You should have realized that in order to move a decimal point over 3 spots to the left, you need to divide it by 1,000. Okay, because if you take 4.7 divided by 1,000, you would have taken this decimal point and moved it once, twice, 3 times, and put it right here, and you would have filled in those spots, and your answer would have been, which matches this. Okay, so when you look at a problem like that and you're trying to figure out n, look at what happened to this decimal. What happened to it? Look at it moved over to the left 3 spots. And you know, in order to move something to the left 3 spots, you need to multiply it by a power of 10 with 3 zeros. Okay, let's do number 3. It says estimate the quotient. So you are going to go ahead and estimate either using place value or compatible numbers. You may choose either one on this problem and either one for the test. And I will show you both ways so that you are really confident using both ways. So pick which way you're going to do it and go ahead and estimate this quotient. Okay, let's do this together. Let's do this first by using place value. In order to use place value to estimate a quotient, we are going to take 224 and 68/100 divided by 4. First step, always in division of decimals, is to get that decimal point moved up into the quotient. We're going to keep everything lined up this way. Okay, now, does 4 go into 2? It most certainly does not. Does 4 go into 22? It does. 4 goes in there 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. Let's subtract just to make sure we have the right number. We've got 2. 2 is definitely less than 4, so we can stop. We have a non-zero digit of 5 up here. When you are estimating, you don't need to continue. That would be long division. For estimation, you have your very first non-zero digit being 5. So all you need to do at this point is fill in zeros for the rest. Okay, so your answer for this is going to be an estimate of 50. So now let's try that same problem, but let's use compatible numbers. All right, so we have, again, 224 and 68/100 divided by 4. Okay, so what we can do is we can just take those numbers, let me erase this, and we're going to look at this number right here. All right, let's look at this number and this number. 4 and 224 approximately. What can we change this to so that we can make them very easy? If we leave this as a 4, what can we change 224 to so that it becomes something that is easily divided by 4? Well, we have some options. We could simply round this to 200. 200 divided by 4 is 50. We also potentially, and I would have accepted this as a right answer, we could have taken this 224 and changed it to 240 divided by 4, and that would have been 60. Okay, either one of those would have been acceptable answers for estimating the quotient. Remember, we're not getting an exact answer, we're just estimating. So either of these would have been fine for estimating the quotient. If you did it by place value, you would have had to get this answer right here. Okay, let's look at number 4, which is also estimating the quotient. You're just using money, which isn't much different from decimals. You're just adding that $sign in there. And you always, with money, make sure that you go all the way out 2 spots past the decimal so that you include the hundredth spot. Why? Because there's 100 pennies in a dollar. So when we are using money, whenever you do money, make sure you have a $sign. Make sure you have something, even if it's a 0 in the 1 spot. Make sure you have your decimal, and make sure you go 2 spots past the decimal. This is how all money should be written. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. First, we are going to do, let's do estimating by compatible numbers first. So we have $29.72 divided by 57. All right, so let's get some compatible numbers here. Look at this with me. These are some difficult numbers to deal with. So let's kind of round them off and see what we can do. Let's change this 57. Let's change that to a 60. So it's nice and even. Now look at this number here. Remember, you're just moving the decimal point and the dollar sign up. So we can ignore those now. Okay, so when we have 60 and we have 2972, I can look at this and I can say, well, 60 doesn't go into 2 and it doesn't go into 29. So my first number is going to be right here. So I've got 297 divided by 60. How about let's round that 297? Would 300 be a good compatible number? Yes, it would. So 60 goes into 300 5 times, right? 5 times 60 is 300. So remember, when you are using compatible numbers, or even when you are doing any kind of estimating, you get that first number, the rest can just turn to 0 because we're estimating. We don't have to continue to divide here. So our answer is going to be 50 cents. Okay? Let's do this same problem, but let's do it using place value estimation. So if we go over here, and we have $29.72, and we are going to move our decimal point and our dollar sign up. Okay, so 57 does not go into 2, and it does not go into 29 either, but it does go into 297. So you say, about how many times? I'm going to guess that it's about 5 times. 5 times 57. Let's do that over here. 57 times 5. 35, 25 plus 3 is 28, 285. So we put that here. We're going to subtract. We get 12. 12 is less than 57, so we can stop. Now, do we need to bring down? Do we need to keep going? No. We have our first non-zero digit. That's all we need to estimate to. We're going to put a 0 in here. Why? Because we always want money to go out 2 spots. And we got the same answer for using compatible numbers as we did for using place value. Okay, be super careful on your test with your estimating. Make sure that your money goes out 2 spots. Make sure that when you are estimating, you go to that first non-zero digit and then you just stop. Okay, let's move on to number 5. This problem says compare, and you have 2 separate division problems that it wants you to figure out the answer to and compare. Go ahead and pause your video, do this, and come back when you have an answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure both of these problems out. The first problem on the left here is 2 and 16/100ths divided by 3. All right, so we're dividing decimals here. The first thing we do is we move the decimal up to the quotient first and foremost. 3 does not go into 2. We're going to put a 0. Does 3 go into 21? Yes, it does. How many times? 7. 7 times 3 is 21. We get 0 remaining. 0 is definitely less than 3, so we did it right. And we bring down. Now we have 6. 3 goes into 6. Twice. We subtract, we get a 0. There's nothing left to bring down. So our answer for this side is going to be 72/100ths. Let's go to the other side and figure that one out. 1 and 216,000ths divided by 4. All right, move the decimal point up first and foremost. 4 does not go into 1, but 4 does go into 12 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. Subtract. We get a 0. 0 is less than 4, right? Checked it. Yep, it's less, so we did it right. And we bring down our next number, which is 1. And we start over. Whenever you bring down, you have to do it all over again. You can't stop. All right, 4 goes into 1. 0 times. So we do put a 0 up there, and we do all of the steps. 0 times 4 is 0. Subtract, and we get a 1. 1 is less than 4, so we can bring down our next number. 16. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. Subtracting, get a 0. 0 is less than 4. There's nothing left to bring down. So our answer is 304 thousandths. Which is bigger, 304 thousandths or 72 hundredths? Remember, when you are comparing decimals, you move from the left to the right and see which one is bigger. So we both start with the 0 in the ones place, okay? So there's nothing to really compare there, 0 and 0. Let's move over to the tenths place. We have 7 tenths here and 3 tenths here. So which one is bigger? It is most definitely 7 tenths. 7 tenths is bigger than 3 tenths. Don't look at this and say, oh, it's 304 and this is 72. That's not how we compare decimals. We go place by place. Start with the furthest to the left. If they're the same, like these two zeros were, then you go the next spot over to the tenth spot. And 7 tenths is greater than 3 tenths. So you should have put the greater than sign in there. All right. Let's go on to number 6. Divide, round to the nearest cent. Be careful if you want to round to the nearest cent. That means you're rounding to the nearest hundredths spot. So you are going to need to divide all the way out to the thousandth spot so that you have a judge for whether the hundredth spot is going to be raised up or left the same. Go ahead and pause and we will see if you got your answer right. Okay, here we are back. Round to the nearest cent. And you know what? It looks like I forgot to actually put the $sign in my problem. There should be a $sign in the problem. All right, so let's take $657.20 divided by 42. Okay, so say you have $657.20 and you're going to divide it amongst 42 people. First thing we do, move the $sign up, which if you didn't do that, it's fine because it wasn't in the problem this time, I forgot. And we're going to move the decimal point up, and then we're going to do our division. 42 does not go into 6, but it does go into 65 one time. 1 times 42. Let's subtract. We end up with 22 left, which is less than 42, so it's good. We can keep moving. Let's bring down the 7. All right, here we've got kind of a big one. 42 goes into 227 about how many times? Here's where you can think about compatible numbers, even though you're not estimating. You can think, well, 42 into 227. It's about 40 going into about 200. 40 would go into 200 about 5 times, so I'm going to use that as my kind of guess. 5 times. So let's go over here and take 42 times 5. We'd get 210. So we'll put that right here, 210. We subtract, and we end up with 17 left over. Okay? 17 is less than 42, so we did it right. And we can bring down our next number, which is a 2. I'm going to run out of space here. I can just tell. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Let's move this up. Okay, we brought down our 2. 42 goes into 172. Okay, well, how many times is that going to be? We know that if we do it 5 times, it's 210. We just did that. So let's lower it. Let's try putting it in there 4 times. Okay, 42 times 4 is 168. Well, that works. Subtract, and we get 4. Okay. 4 is definitely less than 42, so we are going to bring down our next number, which is 0. 42 goes into 40 0 times. Okay, you don't just get confused there and say, okay, it doesn't go in, what do I do? If you bring something down, that means you have to do all 5 steps, which means, including if you have to put a 0 here, 42 goes into 40 0 times. 0 times 42 is 0. Let's subtract. We get 40. 40 is less than 42. So we bring down our next number. We don't have any number. So guess what? We're done, right? No, we are not done. Don't just stop there and say that that's your answer. We have to go to the nearest cent. So we are going to not leave this remainder here. We can't leave a remainder of 40. It didn't come out even. We can't leave a remainder. We need to go to the nearest cent. We're going to add a 0. Okay, if you add a 0, it doesn't change the value. We're going to bring it down. Now we have 400. Okay, 42 definitely goes into 400. About how many times do you think it's going to go in there? Let's try. It's almost 10, right? 40 would go into 400 10 times. So let's try 9. 18, 36, 37. It's 378. All right, let's subtract. Change this to a 3, 9, 10. 22 left. That's less than 42. Okay, oops, you know what we forgot to do? We forgot to put our 9 up here, guys. I'm so sorry. Remember, we decided 42 times 9. Okay, so we put our 9 up there. Now, we have a remainder here. Do we need to keep going is the question. We do not need to keep going. Why? Because we're rounding to the nearest cent. That means we got to round to this spot here. We already have our judge. Our judge is this guy. This guy says what to do with him. We're trying to decide if we leave it as a 0 or if we raise it to 41 cents. This 9 tells us to do what? Keep it the same or raise it? It tells us to raise it to a 1. So our answer would be $15.41. Okay, that seems like a lot, but what you're doing is you're just doing regular long division with a decimal point and a dollar sign, and all you're doing different is you are adding zeros until you get out to the thousandth spot, because with money you're going to want to round it to the nearest penny. So you have to go out to this third spot. A lot of you got that wrong on your quiz, so try to remember money means to go out to the thousandth spot and round to the nearest penny. What is the quotient n divided by 8 when n equals 3.9? Okay, well this isn't too bad, because even though it gives you this problem where it says n divided by 8, you say, well, what is n? Oh, look, they gave me the answer. They said n is 3.9. So all you're really doing is taking 3.9 and you're dividing it by 8. Move the decimal up. 8 does not go into 3, but 8 does go into 39. Let's see. 4 times 8 is 32. 5 times 8 is 40. So it can only go in 4 times. 4 times 8 is 32. You have a remainder of 7. So that is less than 8. So you're good. But can we have a remainder? No, we do not want a remainder when we are using decimals. So what do? We add a 0. If you ever get a remainder on your test, when you're dividing, you have to add a 0. Bring it down and let's keep going. 8 goes into 70 how many times? 8 goes into 70, let's see. 8 times, let's try 8. Well, 8 times 8 is 64. What about 8 times 9? 8 times 9 is 72, so that's too much. So let's try 8 times 8 is 64. Let's subtract. Remainder of 6 is less than 8. And we don't want a remainder, so we're going to add another 0. And let's bring it down. Now we've got 8 into 60. Okay, we have 8 going into 60. Let's see. 8 times 6, what is that? 48. 8 times 7 is 56. 8 times 8 is 64. Well, that's too much, so let's go with 7. 8 times 7 is 56. Subtract. 4 left. 4 is less than 8, so we're good to go, but we have a remainder, so we're going to add another 0 and bring it down. Now we have 40. 8 goes into 40. Yay, we can finally end this. 5 times even. And we have a remainder of 0. So our answer is right up here. And remember, we're always going to have something in the 1 spot. always put a 0 in there. And that is our answer for number 7. So with these type of problems, the key is never leave a remainder. Always keep adding zeros to your dividend until you come up with no remainder. Okay? And on this test, you're never going to be going past, honestly, I think you only go to the thousand spot. You're never even going to go out this far as I did on our sample one. Okay, hopefully you got that one right. And if you didn't, hopefully this makes sense to you now that we've gone through it together. Okay, I think that I missed number 8 on here. I think I went right to number 9. Sorry about that. Let's just go ahead and do number 9. Okay, number 9 says divide and check. Okay, and you are going to need to do that on your test. So let's look at how we divide and check. If we have 5 and 362 thousandths divided by 7, first thing we do is move the decimal point up. And 7 does not go into 5, so we'll put a 0. 7 goes into 53. Let's see. I'm going to go with 7. 7 times 7 is 49. Let's subtract, and we're going to get 4, right? 3 minus 9 you can't do, so we had to borrow 1 from over here, and we ended up with 4. Check it. 4 is less than 7, so we're good to go. Bring down our 6 and start over. 7 goes into 46. Well, let's go with 6. 6 times 7 is 42. Subtract, and we get 4. 4 is less than 7, so we did it right. Bring down. 7 goes into 42. 6 times. And we have no remainder. Yay. So our answer is 766 thousandths. We divided. You also, it says you have to check. All right, make sure you read your instructions on your test. Divide and check. How do you check a division problem? You take your quotient right here. You multiply it by your divisor, and your answer should be your dividend. So let's do that. Let's take our quotient. Let's multiply it by our divisor. 7 times 6 is 42. 7 times 6 is 42 plus 4 is 46. 7 times 7 is 49 plus 4 is 53. Now, you know, with multiplication and division, you do it, multiplication of decimals, you do it just as normal, but then you go back and you say, how many decimal places do I need to move my decimal over? 1, 2, 3. The decimal point currently in our answer is right here, right? Because it's a whole number. So we need to move it over 1, 2, 3 spots to right here. So 5 and 362 thousandths. Does that match our dividend? Yes, it does. It's hard to tell, but it was 5.362. It matches. So you divided and you checked. All right, nice job. Let's move on to the next one, which says find the quotient. All right, find the quotient of 3 and 94 hundredths divided by 5 hundredths. When you have a decimal in the divisor, you cannot leave it, right? You must move the decimal point over so that we get a whole number. So let's move it over to here. Now we have 5, right? We can get rid of these zeros because we don't need them. So now we have 5. We have a whole number. But since we moved the decimal point over 2 spots in the divisor, we need to also move it over in the dividend. So our decimal point is now here, which means that in our answer, our decimal point will be here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the math. Now we have 5 goes into 394. Does 5 go into 3? No. Does 5 go into 39? Yes. How many times? 7. 7 times 5, 35. Remainder of 4. 4 is less than 5, so we did it right. Bring down the 4. Now 5 goes into 44 how many times? 8. 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract. We get a remainder of 4. Is 4 less than 5? Yes, it is. Is there anything to bring down? No, there isn't. So what do we do with this 4? We have this remainder. Oh no, we cannot have a remainder. when we are doing decimals. So what do? We can add a 0. And we can bring it down. Now we have 40, and 5 goes into 40 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract. We get a 0. 0 is less than 5. Nothing to bring down. No remainder. Our answer is 78 and 8/10. Good job if you got that right. Let's move on to number 11. Divide, multiply to check. All right, the same as the previous one. Go ahead and pause and do number 11 and then come back when you think you've got the right answers. All right, let's go ahead and do this together. We've got .3627 divided by 9/10. Okay, our first step is to make sure that we have a whole number as a divisor, which we don't. So we've got to move this decimal point over to here, and we've got to match it here, and then put it up in our quotient. There we go. Now we are actually ready to start doing our division. Make sure you always do that first on your test. You have to have a whole number as a divisor. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, just for the sake of clarity, we can get rid of that 0. There's no point in having that there. 9 does not go into 0, nor does it go into 3, but it does go into 36 4 times. 4 times 9 is 36. We're going to subtract that, and we get a 0. 0 is less than 9, right? So we did it correct. We're going to bring down the 2. All right, and we start over. 9 goes into 2, 0 times. 0 times 9 is 0. We subtract. We get 2 left. 2 is less than 9. So we're going to bring down our 7. 9 goes into 27 3 times. 3 times 9 is 27. We subtract, and we get 0. 0 is less than 9. We don't have anything to bring down. We don't have a remainder. So this is going to be our answer. Remember, when you give answers in decimals, you always want to have something in the 1 spot, even if it's a 0. So 403 thousandths is our answer. So we divided, but remember, always read your directions. Make sure you did everything it asked for. It says multiply to check. What are you going to multiply? In order to check a division problem, you multiply your quotient, or your answer, divided by your divisor, and you should get an answer of your dividend. Okay, so let's try it. 403 thousandths times 9. 27. 9 times 0 is 0, plus 2. 9 times 4 is 36. Now that's not the end, because we do have to look back and see we have 1, 2, 3 spaces past the decimal, so we need to take this decimal and move it back over. And we get 3 and 627 thousandths, which is exactly what we have. So we know that we got that right. The wonderful thing is, when you do division, you can check your own answer and make sure that it's right. If these two match, you are guaranteed almost for certain that you have gotten that answer correct on your test. So when you have a test, this upcoming test is 15 problems, you are going to want to check your answers. That way you'll know. Go back and redo it if you don't get the same. Okay, let's move on to some story problems. The last 3 are going to be story problems. All right, you are going to know how to do these because we're dividing decimals. You just need to figure out what the story problem is asking for. So let's look at number 12. Mrs. Van Zanten walks 8 78 kilometers in 3 hours. About how many kilometers does she run in each hour? So let's look at some key things. First of all, we've got 8.78 kilometers in 3 hours. So you want to know how much in each hour, or how many in 1 hour, right? So in each hour, that means you're going to be dividing. But look at this. It says about how many. Whenever it says about how many, you know you can estimate. So what you're doing is you're taking 8 7/78 kilometers. You're dividing it by 3 hours to find out how much in just 1 hour do I run or walk, okay? So let's look at this. We're estimating. You can use compatible numbers or you can use place value. All right, let's start by using place value. 3 goes into 8. How many times? Twice. 2 is less than 3, right? So, you know you got it right. We're not going to go any further than this, right? Oh, whoopsie. I forgot to bring my decimal point up first. That was very bad. Okay, so your estimate would be 2 kilometers if you did it doing place value. If you did this using compatible numbers, which honestly is my preferred method because I feel like it gets a little bit closer to the actual, but you can do it either way. Either way will be right. So let's look at this. 3, we're going to leave that alone, right? We're going to leave that at 3. And look at, we've got 8.78, which is really close to 9. And that would be a quick and easy division problem. If you have 9 divided by 3, that equals 3, right? So this answer, if you used compatible numbers, would be 3 kilometers. All right, so if this were the problem on the test, I would take either one of those answers, either by place value or compatible numbers. Okay, let's move on to number 13. We have a story problem that says estimate the unit price of each box of produce. And when it says things like unit price, that means, for instance, in this problem, we have box number 1, and it says you get 4 pounds in the box. There's 4 pounds in the box, and you're paying $1.62. So when it says unit price, it always wants to know what one of the units would cost. So in this case, it wants to know what 1 pound costs. If they ask for the unit price of something and you have 16 ounces and it asks for the unit price, that means it wants to know what 1 ounce is. Unit price always means one of whatever type of measurement unit you are using. Okay, so for this one, estimate the unit price of each box of fresh produce. So if you have one box, that's 4 pounds for $1.62, and you have a second box you could buy, but it's 6 pounds and it's $4.75. If you were at the store and you wanted to know which box of produce you could get for cheaper per unit or per pound, that's how you're going to compare it, because can't really compare a 4 pound box with a 6 pound box. But if you find out what box 1 costs for each pound and you find out what box 2 costs per pound, then you can compare equally what 1 pound of each box would cost. So that is something that I use that quite a bit. Sometimes in stores, it will actually say unit price, like on the label on the store shelf, it will say unit price per pound to help you compare when you're shopping. So for instance, this one, you can go ahead and pause. You're going to try to figure out 4 pounds for $1.62. What is that per pound? So there's going to be your first problem. 6 pounds for $4.75, you're going to figure out how much it costs for 1 pound, so you're going to need to divide, and then which box is cheaper, and write that out. So 3 answers for this one. Go ahead and try that, and when you come back, I'll show you how I do it. Okay, so let's take box 1. You have 4 pounds for $1.62. So $1.62, we are going to divide that by 4 to figure out how much just 1 pound costs. First step, move your $sign and your decimal up. 4 goes into 1 0 times. 4 goes into 16 4 times. Okay, 0 is definitely less than 4, so you know you did it right. Bring down the 2. All right. 4 goes into 2. It does not. It goes in 0 times, okay? You're not just going to leave that. Put the 0 up there. 0 times 4 is 0, subtract it, and you have a remainder of 2. 2 is less than 4. There's nothing left to bring down, but do we ever leave a remainder in a decimal problem? We do not. We are going to go one step further. We can add a 0 without changing the answer. Bring the 0 down. Now we've got 4 into 20. We know that goes in 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. We have 0. 0 is less than 4. There's nothing to bring down. There's no remainder. So up here we have our answer, except for this is money. So when you are dealing with money, how far are you going to put your answer out? Only to the 100th spot, only to this spot right here, because that is a penny. And we don't have we don't have currency past smaller than a penny. So how are we going to get rid of this 5? We're going to round to the nearest penny. So this 5 right here is going to tell us, what do we do with the 0? Do we keep it the same, or are we going to move it up a penny? And we are going to move it up a penny because it's a 5 or more, raise the score. So our actual answer for this is going to be 41 cents. So hopefully you got that. For box 1, each pound is going to be 41 cents. I really should put a 0 in there for the dollar. Okay, so there we go. That we just figured out is box number 1. Okay, so let's move on to box number 2 and find out per pound how much that one is so that we can do a good comparison. We've got $4.75 divided by 6 pounds. Okay, let's do the first thing we always do. Move the dollar sign and the decimal up. 6 does not go into 4. 6 does go into 47. How many times? 7. That's 42. Subtract. 5 is less than 6. So we can bring down the next 5. All right, we start over. 6 goes into 55. How many times? 9 times. 9 times 6 is 54. And we have a remainder of 1. 1 is less than 6. There's nothing left to bring down, but we really don't want to leave a remainder in a money problem. Okay, now your answers on your test will all come out once you go past out to the thousandths point place. This is my made-up problem, so we may have to stop early, but 6 does not go into 1, so we're going to add a 0. Bring it down. 6 goes into 10. I'm sorry, 6 does not go into 10 4 times. Just wrote that wrong. 6 goes into 10 once. Okay, 1 time. And you have a remainder of 4. Now, we could keep going, but with money, you only go out to the 100th spot. You only go to here. We don't have anything smaller. So we have to stop and look to the right at the thousandths place and decide whether it's going to be 79 cents or 80 cents. And this 1 tells us to leave it. So our answer is going to be 79 cents. Okay, so we're going to put that box number 2 per unit is 79 cents. All right, so now we can compare because we're comparing unit for unit or pound for pound. So which box is cheaper? We've got box number 1 is 41 cents per pound. Box number 2 is 79 cents per pound. So we are going to say that if we want to buy the cheaper box, we are going to buy box number 1, okay? Good job. Let's move on to number 14. We've got 2 more left here. Number 14 says a professional punch bowl holds 11.84 liters of punch. That is 4 times as much as my punch bowl. How much does my punch bowl hold? Okay, so you can see we've got a few numbers here. The professional punch bowl holding 11.84 liters. That's going to be 4 times as much as mine. So mine, I'm going to need to divide, right? I want to get smaller. This is 4 times what I have. If we divide that by 4, you'll find out how much punch my bowl holds. Okay, so you've got 11 and 84 hundredths. We're going to divide it by 4 to find out how much punch mine will hold. All right, so move the decimal point up. That's the very first thing. 4 doesn't go into 1, but 4 does go into 11 twice. Subtract. We get 3. All right, 3 is less than 4, so we did it right, and we bring down the 8. All right, now 4 goes into 38. How many times? 9 times, that'd be 36. Subtract, and we get a 2. That's less than 4, so we did it right. Bring down the 4. 4 goes into 24 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24. 0 is less than 4. There's nothing left to bring down. There's no remainder. So we know that our answer is 2 96/100ths. Now, when you are doing a story plot problem, please remember you have to label it. Is it 2 96 miles, 2 96 inches, 2 96/100ths of a pound, 2 96/100ths of a what? 2 96/100ths liters of punch is what my punch bowl holds. All right, last problem, guys. We made it to the end. Problem number 15. Let's read it together. Tom has a 20.5-pound bag of potatoes. He eats 25/100ths of a pound of potatoes every day. How many days of potatoes does he have? All right, so let's look at our information here like we like to do. Here's how many potatoes he has, 20.5 pounds. He eats this much every day, so how many days then can he eat potatoes? All right, so we're going to divide 20 5/10, divide it by 25/100ths. First step, we have to have a whole number as a divisor. Let's move this over to right here. Now we need to match it. We moved it over twice. Once, twice. We need to move it right here, which means you have to add a 0 here. Now we have a whole number as a divisor. I like to kind of get rid of this junk here, erase it or whatever, so that it doesn't mix you up. So we've got 25, and we have moved our decimal now over to here. So actually we end up with 2 whole numbers. Okay, move the decimal point up, and you're ready just to do regular division. 25 goes into 2. It doesn't. 25 goes into 20. It doesn't. 25 goes into 205. Well, here's where you kind of got to guesstimate. 25 goes into 200 about 8 times. So let's try that. We've got 8 times 25, which is 200. Okay, if you don't know that just in your head, all I'm doing is taking 25 times 8, and I'm doing the math over here. All right, but a lot of you can do that in your head already. So we've got 200. We subtract. 5 is definitely less than 25, so we're good to go to bring down. Okay, now 25 goes into 50 twice. Subtract. 0 is less than 25. There's nothing left to bring down. There's no remainder. How many days of potatoes does he have? 82 days of eating potatoes. Wow, that's almost 3 months of eating potatoes. Okay, and there's your answer. Okay, so now we've done 15 problems together, or 14 problems actually. These are very, very, very similar, almost exact same type of directions that you will see tomorrow on your test. Okay, so that's all you need to do. You are ready for your test tomorrow. I'm excited for you guys. You are going to do a fabulous job. So just some really quick, very important instructions on your test. You are going to take your test both on paper and digitally, so listen very closely. You're going to tomorrow go on to Sadlier and take your test. You're going to look at the problem on the screen, get out a sheet of paper, nice and neatly with each problem numbered. Do your work on your paper. Circle your final answer, and then enter your answer digitally onto Sadlier. When you are finished with your test, submit it on Sadlier, and it will go directly for grading. Also, go back then and take a picture of your hard copy of your work that's nice and neat. Make sure your decimal points are very, very clear and your answer is circled. That way, I want you to upload that to Canvas under Submit Assignment under Chapter 13 Test under your math module. When I go to correct your test, I will look first at Sadlier. If you got something wrong digitally, I'm going to go back, if you uploaded it, to your hard copy and check to see if you did it correctly on your paper. If you did, I will give you credit for it. If I can see that you got it done correctly, but you just entered it wrong digitally, that should give you the best chance of getting a fabulous grade on your Chapter 13 Decimals test. You guys are going to do great. Just like this screen says, you have all my love and support, and I'm rooting for you. You are going to do awesome on this test. I will check in tomorrow to let you know how you did. All right, thanks guys. Good luck.